薄いのアホ。
プリズムパワーメイクアップカードレディー
Welcome to Shojo and Tell, where we discuss shoujo manga and tell who's hot and who's not, talk about themes, and just generally geek out. Today, August 19th, 2018, we'll be shoujo and telling about the first 8 volumes of Fruits Basket by Natsuki Takaya. I'm your host, Ashley McDonald, and I'm joined by Anime News Network editor Jacob Chapman. Hey, Jacob.
Hey, everybody. Oh, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Jacob, you have a long history with Fruits Basket that I'm not even sure I know all the bits of, so I feel that you should tell the audience about your history with Fruits Basket.
Well, geez, yeah, it is basically going back to how long Fruits Basket has even been in English is kind of my history with it. But because I think it was published, do you remember when Tokyopop first published the first volume?
I think it was 2004 or around there.
Yeah, that would be okay. That would be the time. So I discovered Fruits Basket when I was sort of getting into anime for the first time in middle school. And, it was certainly it's funny because when I first read Fruits Basket, I was the age of the youngest characters. And now I'm like, I guess the age of the oldest characters, a little older than most. I think they're all 27 and I'm technically 28. So, wow, how time flies, right? So
this would be true of me too. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay.
Oh God. Everybody jokes about Shigure being old, and it's like, oh no, I'm 1 year older than him now.
Yeah, we're old. It's fine.
We're old. Oh no. Anyway, so my history with Fruits Basket is when it first started being published in English by Tokyopop. I had a lot of friends who were really into it, and they're like, "Oh, you should read this if you're like kind of into anime and manga. You should read this." And at that point, I really hadn't fully divulged into being like fully an anime fan and reading like not that much manga because I don't. I'm kind of illiterate when it comes to manga. I read some of the biggest stuff, but that's about it. Like right now, I'm reading Attack on Titan and To Your Eternity, and that's kind of it. So, but I was really intrigued by it, and so I started reading it initially because I was like, oh, fairy tales and animals, I like those things.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other shoujo manga were more about like just sort of high school antics and like a celebrity high school. I really couldn't get into like Boys Over Flowers or Skip Beat. Skip Beat was really big when I was in high school. And I tried, but I wasn't as interested in them because I kind of liked the supernatural element of Fruits Basket and that it wasn't really about love triangles, that it was kind of about complicated family relationships and, hardships in school and in life and stuff like that. So even though there was a romantic subtext to it, it didn't really start that way. So I dug it and I was into it and I thought it was fun. And then the anime was the first anime that I ever bought on video. And so I had to sneak it because it wasn't allowed. So I had these old, like really crappy dual layer 7 episodes on each DVD release from Funimation. And I got it in the collector's edition box, which is just kind of it was like a folded cardboard, like sort of book thing that like clunked open, and you would fit 4 individual DVDs in their respective cases. It wasn't very fancy, but I had it for a long time. And but I was just really into it, and I would read a lot of it again for the reasons I mentioned before. But then as it went on, I was like, oh, this is dark. Like this is gruesome. Like by the time I was getting in high school and we're into the published volumes that we won't necessarily be covering today, but like most of the ones that actually come after volume 8, I was like, oh my God. And I think, and it really stuck with me because as I got older, the books did kind of age with me, and it informed a lot of, I think, a lot of things that I kind of believe on a deep level emotionally. Like Fruits Basket, a lot of the way almost every chapter ends is talking about an emotional problem and how you work through it, or how you come to terms with these emotions and what it means about you and your place in the world, or what it doesn't mean about you and your place in the world and stuff like that. And I, for better or for worse, I agreed with a lot of Natsuki Takaya's stance on this stuff, as spoken through Tohru or through other characters, when even Tohru has problems that she doesn't understand and needs emotional support from people. And so, as I got older, every time I've ever gone back to it, it's only ever gotten better and better. With the new translation, I looked at some of these scenes and they make even more sense, like emotionally, and it's a more complex image than I thought when I first read it. And I think, and eventually over time, it became more definitively like my favorite manga. And I think it probably will be forever, because even if I read a manga and I have read manga that I know are better, quote unquote, or more like, distinguished or something.
Okay.
Like nothing meant to me emotionally what Fruits Basket meant to me emotionally at a formative time in my life. Like I think every single chapter of Fruits Basket, there's something that like helped me as a person, which is, how can you top that? Like, it's not that it's the best manga of all time, but I don't think anything will mean more to me in manga form. So that's been my history with it. And along the way, I left this out, right?
You left out a big part here.
I left out a big thing. So when I was 20 or so, from the time I was 20 to 22, I made a radio drama version of Fruits Basket, just for free out of my own time. And Patreon didn't exist back then, so there wasn't really a way to get like enough money to support actors or to musicians and stuff like that. I was surrounded by really wonderful people who helped contribute to this thing. I thought really like great, talented actors, amateur actors who just really knocked it out of the park, playing all these parts. And I got the sound effects library together, and then amazing, like just dropped it in my lap. This guy, Ken Clayton, who was like, "Hey, I'll just make music for you." And it's pretty good music. I mean, I'm uninformed on this stuff. Like I don't make music myself, but I was like really moved by the stuff that he came up with and just gave to me to use for this radio drama. And it was always just sort of a little thing that like, a couple thousand people listened to. It was small considering what I was doing at the time, which was making money off of YouTube and Blip, which is a not YouTube thing that used to exist, talking about anime. And this was like a side thing that made me no money and not that many people paid attention to, but I loved it dearly and would have kept going if I could afford to have done so, but I couldn't. So I made 24 episodes that cover the first 4 volumes of the manga, and and then I had to stop. But that's, I think, one of the most fun, like one of my proudest little accomplishments that I just sort of made for me and for people who love that story. So
yeah, and people can still listen to it. I saw it had a lot of comments that were like, "I love this. It's so good."
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and I think that I wouldn't be opposed to doing something like that again in the future, but it would either have to be official or it would have to be in some other capacity where I'd be kind of allowed to do it and able to do it and get either paid to do it or I don't know. It would just have something that I could sustain. But I'm definitely proud of what I put out there. And yeah, if you want to link, I will link, I guess, to the archive I have of all those if anybody wants to listen to them. Be warned, they were made in the year 2010. I'm not actually going to say be warned they're janky, because of course they're a little janky and they sound a little amateur, but I'm actually kind of proud. I don't think that they're hard to listen to. I'm still proud of the work that I did. What I want to say is be warned, because they're problematic because I made them in 2010. I believe the R word is used once or twice by a character. So that's not great, and I apologize. And there's just some roughness to it that is, I believe, in keeping. I didn't add anything that wasn't in the manga, but the manga, it was written in 1997 and is also a little problematic. So, there you go. But like, if that doesn't bother you, I'm still really proud of the work I did on it. And, it made me happy for the time that I got to work on it.
Yeah, and I think my own personal experience mirrors yours, maybe to a less intense degree, because I don't think I've read Fruits Basket for like a decade, like since it ended. I remember I read it all the way through once all of it was out, and I was like, okay. And I probably like looked at scenes that are my favorite that come later in this manga, like to be like, oh, cute feelings, and stuff like that.
Sure, cute later in the manga. Yeah, it's really cute.
So cute. Also,
it's so
crying.
Heartwarming what happens. Yeah, no, I reading Yen Press's translation, because it's new, like I would think like I'm inured to this. I don't feel anything anymore. Like I do feel things, but like, oh, I'm not going to cry reading this manga anymore. And then I read Yen Press's translation and it somehow makes it feel new to me. And it's like, shit. Like I definitely cried while revisiting this for the podcast.
I cried too. Okay.
It's powerful stuff. And I, the first 8 volumes don't even really get into the I guess the deep emotions, but even that surface, like that chicken soup for the soul that you kind of need, it's very real, and it speaks to you. Yeah. And I definitely remember when it was coming out, like as you had to wait months in between each volume, like each volume would come out and I'm like, I'm just sobbing. I would be at the Barnes & Noble. We had Barnes & Noble and Walden Books, and I would be Walden Books carried more manga, but I think Barnes & Noble is close to me. I lived in a small town in Kentucky, and I would be there and I would get that book because it was very important to me. Yeah, okay, so I guess we should take a step back in case
people are not 28 and they did not grow up in the
boom
of...
You grow up in the early 2000s when this was anime fans of the early 2000s.
Yeah, because I feel like there's lots of younger people now who are like, I've heard Fruits Basket is good. I'm like, it is good. What are you talking about? What is Fruits Basket about, Jacob?
Well, and I'm glad that it's in print now, because for a while there you would say, oh, it's good, but it's out of print,
Yeah,
and
that's
there's
true.
23 volumes. And now there's only 12, and they're fully in print, so yeah. Well, Fruits Basket is about a 16-year-old girl named Tohru Honda, who was raised by her single mother most of her life before her mother dies in a horrible traffic accident. And she, because her mom, again, being a single mom, was excluded from most of the family, she doesn't really have family ties necessarily. The only person she knows that can kind of take her in is her paternal grandfather, and there's problems with that maybe we'll get into, but there's not really anywhere that she belongs, and it's not convenient for her. She has two very good and loving, supportive friends, but she's extremely self-conscious about being a burden or taking advantage of anyone. In fact, that's sort of a recurring thing with Tohru, is that she's sort of a sweet cinnamon roll, too pure, too good for this world. Like, she just doesn't want to cause, she tries to be positive about everything, and she doesn't want to cause anybody any trouble. And she's just sort of like this shining beacon of positivity, sometimes to her detriment. And so now that she no longer has a home, she decides, well, I could probably get away with camping in the woods.
Yeah.
Which sounds insane. And it sounds insane, and that's how the manga opens. The first page is like, all right, here's what you're dealing with. This 16-year-old girl has decided that she's going to just live in the woods and support herself by working. Because, so for those who don't know, there isn't really a public school system in Japan that's, you pay to go to school in Japan. Even if it's not a particularly prestigious school, as Tohru's isn't, you have to be able to pay your tuition as a high schooler. And she has to pay her own tuition because her mother didn't have anything to leave her. So she works and goes to school in high school and lives in a tent in the woods. And this is where we're starting. And she's just like happy about it. She's like, my home is my castle. I'm taking care of myself. I'm such a strong person. And It's like, what are you doing?
It's like tsunami season too, or something, right?
It
and
is.
Like...
It's the monsoon season where it's raining a lot, and there's there's liable to be a landslide in the woods, and that's eventually the trouble she finds herself in. Is that eventually a landslide sweeps away her tent in the woods. Fortunately, before this happens, she found out that she was camping on the property of the Soma family, which is like this ancient. Like you think there's old families in America and stuff like that, like old money. There's really old families in Japan, and that's the thing. Is Fruits Basket is a very Japanese story. It's based around a lot of Japanese social mores, and even though the emotions are universal, it is really captivating to that it takes a look at like high schoolers in society in Japan, modern life versus antiquated life. And the Soma family is this very ancient, traditional family, and they own a lot of shit. They're filthy rich. And so there's this cottage in the woods where she was camping that happens to belong to one of the members of the Soma family, who's sort of like a dirty old man. I say dirty old man, he's 27. But like he's sort of
but he's old, remember?
Yeah. He's a lazy lech is more he's a writer by trade, so he just sits around, doesn't shower, and writes books all day. And he's very handsome, but he wears like a traditional kimono and stays in his house and doesn't really do anything. But he lives in this house away from the estate, and he finds Tohru there, and he sees that this mudslide has swept away her tent, and he offers to let her stay in his house with his two cousins, who are Tohru's age, which means we're going to have a love triangle between the two cousins, Yuki and Kyo, who absolutely hate each other. And Yuki is sort of the classic, like, princely, dignified, beautiful, perfect honor roll student who all the girls adore, and so they immediately hate Tohru for spending any time around him. And Kyo, his cousin, is this rowdy, mean, like, acts like he's 13 even though he's 16, punk kid who swears a lot and throws things and breaks things, has a terrible temper tantrum, and just kind of went missing from school. So you have the bad boy and like the prince, and all that seems like, okay, that's a pretty typical shoujo setup, right? All right, so here's where it gets weird. It turns out that the very ancient Soma family is under a curse whereby 13 members of the family in each generation, basically as soon as one dies, another person has to take up the curse, are cursed by the 13 spirits of the Chinese zodiac. And there's 13 because there's an old fable about the cat being one of the animals to be left out of the zodiac because he got tricked by the rat and didn't show up to like the party where they're all inducted into the zodiac. And so that holds true for the curse, which means Yuki is the rat, which is the most blessed and the most providential of the zodiac animals, which is also why he's so good at everything and so incredibly handsome. And Kyo is the cat, which means he's the black sheep of the family. Not, I guess, the black cat of the family,
actually.
right? Yeah, there is a sheep, but that's a different character. And so you have a rat and a cat, and just for funsies, a dog, because Shigure is the dog of the family, and he's just trying to keep everybody together and like keep them from wrecking his house and starting too many fights. And he's just kind of the irresponsible but lovable uncle in this sort of wild living situation. And so that's the situation Tohru finds herself in. Is she finds out about this curse, which will activate, like they will reveal their animal forms if they get sick or emotionally weak. It depends. Like if they're weak in body or spirit, both hold true, then they'll transform. And also if they are pulled too close, they say embraced, but it's really like anything more than like your hand touching their shoulder. If you get too close to them at all and you're a member of the opposite sex, they transform. And so it's a very awkward situation, because that means they're going to run into each other, and you're going to have cats and rats and dogs running around in mass hysteria. And so Tohru has to do her best to keep their secret and take care of them. And that's the basic premise of the story. And as it progresses, she meets more members of the family and starts to realize that the curse isn't just about turning into cute animals when you accidentally run into a girl. There's something more sinister to it. And she doesn't really understand why it's called a curse necessarily. So she just kind of tries to make their lives better, and she feels very blessed for having a place to stay and for getting close to these, very fun-loving and eccentric and exciting rich family. And that's the premise of Fruits Basket.
Yeah, I feel like there are a lot of people who look at the premise and they're like, that seems cute. Like, it's a reverse harem. Like, I want to read that. That'll be fun. And I'm like, you don't know the devastation you're in for.
Right. It's and it does start out cute. And I think that a lot of the early messages, people will probably immediately notice that, like, there's a formula to Fruits Basket where the first half of every chapter is sort of like sitcom jokes, where it's like kind of playing on everybody's personality to like elicit some kind of joke about like, haha, Kyo's dumb, or Yuki has a complex about overlooking feminine, or Shigure is lazy and lecherous, or whatever the case may be. And Toru's clueless, right? She's well-meaning but not very bright, and So and they bounce off each other, but then you find out that this is all leading to all these jokes. Natsuki Takaya, even in the early chapters, which are less cohesive and like intensely thought out than the later chapters, she doesn't really put anything in there for nothing. Like, she likes to pay off almost every little thing that she puts in there, even what seems like kind of a joke. And usually the last half of the chapters, the first half will be like sitcom hijinks, and the last half of the chapter will be like, okay, now we're going to focus on one of these characters, Kyo or Yuki or Tohru or Toru's friends or one of the other Sohmas. Not so much Shigure, but we'll get to that. Shigure doesn't have really a vulnerable moment up front, but like all the other characters, the second half of a chapter will be having a vulnerable moment with them, where you discover that they have a complex over something, or they were hurt by somebody before, or there's a coping mechanism they have in life that is unhealthy, and Tohru kind of addresses it, not purposefully. She's not trying to be their therapist. She just had a really good mom, and that's kind of what right. So that's as far as we know. We'll get to that later, but as of the first 8 volumes, Tohru had a very loving single mother who impressed upon her just all these valuable emotional things for how to deal with hardship in life. And, she was just a really good mom. And so Tohru, kind of unintentionally, just talking about her mom and how much she loved her and the things that she would impart to her, helps the Sohmas deal with their problems, because the Sohmas don't have loving parents. This is an interesting aspect of the curse, is it is weird that like Uncle Shigure is living with his 2 distant male cousins in this house in the countryside, right? Not the countryside, but like the woods neighboring the small city, right? It's weird that they don't live with their parents or even mention their parents. We don't meet Yuki or Kyo's parents for the entirety of these first 8 volumes. We never meet them, and they're very rarely talked about. And so it's like, oh, okay, this family's weird, and these people have trauma, and they're not ready to talk about it. But it's like healing one chapter after another, little aspects of what they of the damage that they had, and without even meaning to. Tohru certainly isn't trying to solve their problems, but as time goes on, she realizes, maybe I should be trying to solve their problems. Is there something I should be doing about the curse? And that is kind of the central crux of the plot is like, is the curse just a cute fun thing, or should something be done about it? And what can one not very bright or talented orphan girl do against this legacy of a family that has existed for centuries?
She can heal their hearts. It's fine. She's good.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like it's very important. There are many Sohmas. There are many characters in this manga. Mm-hmm. I feel like for people who do know it, it's very critical to know who your favorite Soma is. I'll go first. Mine is Kyo. Mm-hmm. I know that's very stereotypical, but I really do love him. Mm-hmm. I think that he was the one who, resonated the most with the struggles that I had myself personally. Mm-hmm. I very much felt that all of my friends were like smarter than me and came from like parents who were better than mine. So like Yuki is the one who's like, I'm just perfect. I was like, I'm just naturally a genius or whatever.
Right. And he's very confident about that. He owns it.
Yeah. And Kyo's the one who's struggling, trying to be like, I work hard. I'm just trying to live. Why y'all hate me?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, screw you. If you hate me, I'm going to continue to exist without you, which seems very strong, but it is in truth kind of a cover up for how he really feels about himself. And and he has lots of anger problems. He likes to break
He has lots
things.
of anger problems. I definitely had anger problems too. That's fine. I still have anger problems.
Yeah, totally. And I relate to that as well. Geez. Favorite Soma is really difficult because it kind of, it's
like, I love all of them so much.
I love all of them so much. And that sounds like a cliche, but this is one of those stories where I can't think of a character I don't like. I even like the student council characters, which don't appear. They get a cameo. They get a peek in Volume 8.
They have a chapter, yeah.
And, I love every single character in Fruits Basket, but for the Somas, I feel like a bad person, but it's true. I think I've always most resonated with Shigure.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So I think it was because I understood. So Yuki and Kyo, I relate to their dysfunction similarly because I also, like Yuki, had a trauma response. I grew up, I just get this out here right now, one of the reasons that Fruits Basket means so much to me is I also grew up in an abusive household with rich parents. It wasn't like a, stereotypical alcoholic fist swinging sort of situation. It was sort of a cult-like situation, and the Soma family is very much like a cult. They're very rich and privileged and have a lot going for them, but emotionally, it's all f***ed up. Like there's no healthy emotions going on in the Soma family at all, despite their providence on the outside, which is why it's so hard for them to ask for help. And so I related to like Yuki's, I guess, response of shutting down to situations, to emotional abuse where he just wouldn't respond and kind of lock up and feel like he could no longer remember how to speak. And I understood that, but I also understood Kyo's anger problems, where he rages and just gets angry over absolutely nothing, over things that he's not really angry about. Like he's angry about something else, but he'll break something or he'll freak out or get mad at someone over something he doesn't actually care about. And so I related to both of those things, even though they seem opposite. Like, people contain multitudes and you can relate to so many different characters. But I was always drawn to Shigure most because Shigure had gone through the phases that these others had gone through, but he came out of it sort of very crafty and bitter and scheming and doing everything that he can. So we don't know what Shigure is scheming exactly as of the first 8 volumes, but we know very early on, and this was cut from the anime, which was sort of weird. In the anime, Shigure really serves no purpose but to be comic relief and kind of an emotional support. But in the manga, it's clear from early on that his purpose, the reason that he's there in this love triangle or outside of this love triangle, is that he is planning something, that he wants Tohru to stay with him, as to stay with these 2 boys because he's up to something. And it's something selfish. He talks about whatever he's up to, it might hurt the kids involved, and they might hate him for it, but he's willing to do it regardless. And so, I certainly don't condone that behavior or relate to it, but I did relate to Shigure's kind of over it thing, I guess. As I got older, it was like, I'm over punishing myself for for my family or for other people who treat me badly, I'm going to do something about this. And I approved. I guess it wasn't so much that I related to Shigure. It was more like he was aspirational in an anti-hero kind of way. Like he's not, he's a little bit of a villain. He's not a great person, but he's really strong because he's been through all this bullshit, and he is, we can't reveal why, but he points out that something makes him very different from the other Zodiac members. He considers himself more cursed than any of the others, which you can agree or disagree with once you find out why he's saying that. But he is in a unique position to the other Zodiac members in that they cannot relate to him at all in this very unique position that he's in. And so he has decided to do something with that, and like, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to do something about this, even if it's hurtful, and even if it makes everybody hate me. I have to do this because I'm not going to sit around and waste my life feeling bad and letting this family control me anymore. And I thought that was really cool. And that's the dark side of him that's sort of in secret, that's seen only to his closest friends and in spare chapters. But the side of them we mostly see is just he's really funny. He's always making jokes. He's there to lighten the mood in every circumstance, and he likes playing with people. In usually his manipulations are positive, right? It's like usually he's manipulating people in a way where he's trying to help them. And he's trying to push them, and he's just kind of playing hardball with people. Like, I'm going to push you out of your comfort zone because you need it, And he offered Yuki a place to stay in his house, and I think that's kind of a big deal because nobody was reaching out to help Yuki before Tohru showed up, and he said, "Hey, you can live with me," and that was huge. Without that, Yuki wouldn't have been able to move on. He needed somebody to tell him, "You don't have to live in the estate anymore." So I think Shigure is a crafty bastard, and I dig that about him. I think he's interesting and fun to watch. So I think the other characters are more lovable, and you wouldn't be friends with them, and you wouldn't want to be friends with Shigure. You don't want to be friends with Shigure, but he's in this story full of nice people and hurt people. You need a mean bastard. You need somebody who's like, I'm not going to take this anymore, and I'm going to solve this problem. So I think Shigure is maybe my favorite. It's hard to say, but he's certainly the one that I like to OU. Like I kind of like to read his stuff over and over, I think.
Interesting. You've convinced me about Shigure. He's definitely very funny, and everybody is funny around him, which is fun. And
he stirs the pot.
Yeah. Certainly the machinations of, him being like, Kyo, you're going to live here too. And then I'm just going to make you fight with Yuki all the time. At least you guys are talking. Isn't that fun?
Exactly. and he's like, you guys are talking like you can't be, I think he knows that you can't be ragingly angry at somebody all the time. He was like, in the past, Kyo and Yuki would meet each other, and it would be bloody. It would be bloody every time. And now, because they're forced to live with one another, you can't do that. Even if they haven't resolved their emotional issues, because that's going to take time. You can't do that all the time. You would be exhausted. You have to just kind of get used to be like, okay, I can spend time around this person without ripping their throat out. You just got to get used to it. And he's forced that situation, which is, ultimately for the best, I think, because Tohru is there and because Tohru is helping them. It's not just them at each other's throats. That wouldn't be good. So
Toru's fun because she's always like, do I want them to fight? I don't know, maybe. Yeah, right. I guess this is okay.
She comes around on it. It's funny, but I think that's it's kind of in a throwaway chapter. It's not really. They go camping in the woods. I know they already live in the woods, but they go like camping yeah. in a different, in the mountains specifically at one point. And that's the turning point for Tohru, where for the first time she's happy that they're fighting. And in the past, Toru's role was always like, please don't fight, you two. Please don't fight, you two. And it would get monotonous. And at some point she's happy when they're fighting because she was like, this is just how you are. And it's become benign. It's become harmless. Because they're not hurting each other. They're just expressing their feelings. They're like, they can't help but hate each other. They're going to continue to hate each other until they resolve that. But it's better than bottling it or, and in the case of this specific part of the story, she was upset because they had just visited her mother's grave together for the first time and they were depressed afterward and she didn't know why. The reason is spoilers. They're both depressed for completely different reasons that we won't find out. We won't find out for books and books and books.
Yeah.
But it's never even covered in the anime, which is funny. Like the story is covered in the anime and we never find out why they're upset. So she's just like, all right, they're fighting, but you know what? They're getting their feelings out and this is normal for them. And I'm just glad that they're, that they're being themselves, and maybe they'll get along better over time, but that's not really something I have to force. It's nice. It's like little things like this. This is a sitcom where there isn't really a status quo that gets monotonous. Things are always changing just a little bit in every chapter, I think.
Yeah, and at some point you realize, like, you know, Yuki and Kyo kind of fight and feel that they have to hate each other because they're like, this is crucial to my identity. Mm-hmm. And it slowly becomes like, oh, maybe this doesn't have to be crucial to my identity. Will become like a central plot point. But yeah, I guess we should talk about like anime and where you can read this, because I think that those are important. You can currently buy Fruits Basket from Yen Press. They have re-released it. It is in 12 omnibuses. It's very interesting because I've had at least 2 people respond to my tweets about Fruits Basket being like, where can I get it in like single volumes though? And I'm like, well, you can buy the old Tokyopop because it was initially published by Tokyopop. Mm-hmm. You can probably find those
down.
Yeah, you hunt those down. They're around. I still have them. But yeah, also the anime is available from Funimation. And I would say if you have watched the anime, you can probably follow most of this podcast discussion. But then after the next 2 podcasts will be incomprehensible.
Then it's going to get dicey. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you should read the manga because the anime only covers the first 8 volumes or so. And that's what's up. That's not enough. You don't know anything about these people yet.
No, and it doesn't cover them faithfully necessarily. It cuts out so like I said, it cuts out the scene where Shigure has a conversation with Hattori about how he's scheming, about how he's got a wager going on with the head of the household, Akito, which we haven't mentioned Akito, but he doesn't show up all that much. He's just this figure of fear and domination. He's not a villain because he's not actively hurting anybody in the story that we can see, because he's closed up in his mansion and everybody else is living in this cottage away from the mansion basically because of him. But he's like a thing that eventually we're going to have to address. He's like the snakes in the pet shop in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, where you keep coming back around to it and it's like, oh, we're gonna have to deal with him eventually. But for now he's just like this dark cloud of like, I own you, I control you, I can take everything away from you at any time, but I'm gonna wait. And that's what he does, and it's very threatening. Anyway, the anime took out all those scenes. It took out anything that it would have had to explain as being part of a plot or mystery in the future, and just sort of kept in the sitcom stuff, which is fine. But it is if you're wondering why the guys are really depressed when they go on that camping trip with Tohru in the anime, well, it's never explained.
You're never gonna know. You're never gonna know.
It's in the manga though, and it's that whole graveyard scene was very different in the manga.
Yeah, I mean, we got an anonymous ask on Tumblr to discuss the differences in Shigure's portrayal between the manga and the anime, and admittedly, I have not watched the anime also in a long time, but I assume that most of them stem from this, like, they didn't know what was going to happen with Akito. Spoilers, like, lots of things happen with Shigure's relationship.
Yeah, according to Takaya, they knew insofar as she told them what the seeds that she was planting for this stuff was setting up, but then they just took it out. So, because they took it out because I think they knew that they weren't going to pay it off. They're like, well, this is 26 episodes and it is on a micro budget. That show's visuals have not aged well. And I think they were like, let's not set up anything we can't pay off, and let's take out anything that's a little too dark and mysterious. So that's what they did, and that's fine. As this affects Shigure's portrayal, it's not as obvious in the first 8 volumes, but it'll be more obvious down the line. I would just say in the anime, he's just sitcom uncle. He's just sitcom dad, and he just makes jokes and is occasionally, he's revealed to be smart and manipulating them in ways to help them, but he's never anything but benevolent. In the manga, he's not benevolent at all. I would say he's much meaner. He's still funny and he still makes funny jokes, but there's always a scene afterward where it's like, he's up to something. And it's not, he's up to something. It's what is he doing?
Yeah, it's like he might destroy Toru's soul kind of thing.
Yeah, he's talking about doing something that will really hurt these kids. And we don't know what it is, but it's something he says he has to do because otherwise he just can't keep living. So it seems he does feel remorse about it. Again, he's not a villain. He's just like, look, rock in a hard place. I have to do this. He's
like, this will be better. It'll hurt some people, but in the end, help more people. So like, let's do it.
Yeah. And I get what I want, which is what he said. I think he obfuscates. He's like, I get what I want, but really he does care. But he says, he's like, look, it doesn't matter if I care or not. I know I'm doing this for me, which is good. Self-awareness. If you're self-aware about being terrible, that is a little better, I guess. You know, who knows?
You're doing it with knowledge, you know? You're not doing it out of ignorance.
You know what the consequences are going to be, and you
Yeah.
accept them. You know? So, sure.
Whether that's good or bad is different, but yeah.
Yeah.
We also got a question from Twitter about the differences between the translations. So Super Snazzy on Twitter said, one of the most notable changes in comparisons is Tokyopop versions for the Yen Press versions. Is the new translation more accurate to the Japanese version, or the changes made to better suit an American audience? Do either of you have a preference for one publication over the other? You, I think, did a more heavy comparison of the two. I just read your comparisons, truthfully.
Yeah, well,
and I read like some select scenes to see how they were different, but
yeah, I continued doing that, by the way. I did it for the first 6 chapters, and by the time this is up, there will have been more chapters. I just wanted to work ahead for a while. I was like, oh, I need to go ahead and work ahead before I continue doing this. But I do want to compare the chapters between these versions, and honestly, I don't have a preference. I keep going back and forth. Sometimes I like Tokyopop's better, sometimes I like Yen Press's better. But the differences are definitely, there's a consistency in the approach between them, which is that Yen Press's is much more faithful. I think that Yen Press's, I can't say much more faithful. Both of them are good translations. I don't think either of them really betrays the intent in any significant way. Like it's just if you're really a huge fan and you care about the minutia, then Yen Press's version is more accurate. And also their printing is bigger, like it's nicer. The print is nicer. The margins are wider, so you can see all of the art. The font choices are better. Like, you know, so for aesthetic reasons, Yen Press's is certainly superior. But in terms of the translation, Tokyopop's is much more natural. It pretty much always reads and looks like people talking, except when it gets to the internal monologue. That's when things get dicey. Especially in later volumes, the internal monologue is dealing sometimes with the vagaries of a very context-heavy language, Japanese, and trying to give words to that in ways that are confusing sometimes. So when it gets really dark and emotional, I would say that Yen Press's version is better at conveying the intent in words that are a little more natural. But when it comes to people just talking, sitcom jokes and stuff like that, Tokyopop's version is much more natural. It's funnier. The Yen Press version feels like reading anime subtitles sometimes. It's kind of janky. Like it's much more accurate to the exact nature of what people are saying, but it doesn't sound like a conversation. And that's a little more helpful for a sitcom, for jokes and stuff like that, where you just kind of want to get the vibe. You don't need to know exactly what Japanese reference this person was making. You just kind of need to get the joke. And so I go back and forth. I like both of them. I think if you're a nut like me, that you should read both of them. And I think if you've never read the manga before, that either one will serve you fine. I would say don't expect to maybe laugh much at the jokes in Yen Press's version. They don't really pop. You don't really get why it's supposed to be funny, but you will cry more. So there's that.
There you go. Trade-offs.
You gotta cry more, right? So, but you know, I like both. I would definitely advocate for both. I'm glad I have both. So yeah, the other thing is the Yen Press's version did not carry over any of the commentary that Natsuki Takaya wrote in the late 90s and early 2000s. And a lot of that stuff is really interesting and fun. But she requested that it be removed because it's not relevant to her life now, which I understand. It's 20 years old. Yeah,
for me, I liked not getting distracted by the commentary because then I have to spend so much more time reading. But like at the same time, I'm like, oh, but you don't get as much historical context with it.
The historical context is that she was playing a lot of RPGs at the time.
Of course. I was like, but it's probably just her talking about music or whatever they normally write in these stupid margins.
Definitely. She talks about how many JRPGs she plays.
Yeah. A lot. I was like, I don't really need that. That's fine. I'm fine not being distracted by that. I think there were certain things in Yen Presses where I was like, I don't think I understand what's going on in this situation, to be honest, or...
Yeah.
Like there would be a scene of them just like talking and there would be a tonal shift and I'd be like, I don't understand the connection between like how we got here sort of deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The ensemble stuff where everyone is talking and making jokes, it doesn't quite flow.
Yeah. I think the one thing I really can't forgive Yen Presses for is Yuki, which you also pointed out.
Right. So the biggest, I would say the only thing that I would say like absolutely wish they hadn't done that. It's not just a nitpick. It's like, y'all, this was maybe a mistake. Is that Everybody who's read the story knows that Kyo likes to insult Yuki by calling him damn rat or rat bastard or whatever. I always liked, it was mostly damn rat, but I liked rat bastard because that's a real insult in real life.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
That's what we call people sometimes if you really don't like them, and it rolls off the tongue great, and it's great. But for some reason, instead of damn Yuki, they went with Yucky Yuki.
Alliteration?
Because it's a pun, because alliteration. But here's the thing, and this happens several times with Kyo in Yen Press's version. Actually, I guess if there was one character that bugged me most in a translation,
it's Kyo.
In the translation, it's Kyo talks like a dork in Yen Press's version line. He uses a lot of idioms. He uses a lot of dad joke phrases and stuff like that. And Kyo's dialogue in Japanese, which I'm very familiar with, I've heard it and read it a million times, is like rough 13-year-old boy, like no creative anything. He uses idioms sometimes, but they are idioms that have existed in Japanese since the dawn of time. And occasionally he'll come up with one of his own, but it's just not very clever. He's just not a clever boy. He's not stupid. He's just very crass, and he just sort of says what he feels, and in the most direct way possible. He's not eloquent, right? So he's not eloquent. And so I think Yen Press's version is a little too cheeky and dorky and eloquent for Kyo. And he's just saying like a string of bleeps. Like he's just not very creative in the way that he insults people. So he says yucky Yuki, which is not, there's no anger in that. It's hard to imagine somebody saying yucky Yuki with like bile or rage. And
it's just so silly, yeah.
It's so silly. And he's Kyo is an angry guy. In fact, he's like 99% rage, and he really hates Yuki. And when he insults him, he's not trying to be cute. He's like, yucky Yuki, hee hee. He's like, I hate him. He's like, damn rat bastard. Like he hates him. So that was my most like, okay, all this other stuff I can, it's, tweaks in translation, but I really, really wish they hadn't done that. Fortunately, it does lessen as the volumes go on. I think they started realizing, this doesn't convey the anger. As the story gets darker, it's like, this really doesn't convey how Kyo feels. So they started using it less, which is good.
That's good. But there was definitely the one line, he's talking to Tohru like pretty early on when they're like on the roof discussing Kyo's master. And Kyo just says, yeah, if Yucky Yuki went up against my master, his ass would be grass. And I was just like, what is this line?
I took a picture of that and I was like, people, we need to talk. Sit down. We need to talk about this. It's
bad.
I don't think Kyo would say his ass would be grass. I think he would just say he'd knock him out. Like that's,
Yeah, the Tokyopop version is
knock
just
his
like,
ass out.
Yeah. The Tokyopop version is just damn rat like would be destroyed by my master or something. Like it's something super normal.
Yeah. And and there's certainly room for eloquence and stuff. Like, I mean, when it comes to Ayame, you want as flowery language as possible.
Yeah.
But for characters like Yuki, I think maybe it was overwritten. That's the word for it. Overwritten. It's not bad. It's just too much.
That's definitely. So if you want a better Kyo, read Tokyopop.
Sure. Yeah. Or mentally substitute any funny, cute, like nerdy thing he says with like.
Yeah.
That's what he's
just add the word bastard to it and it's fine.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got other questions. Another one was from @Metamar on Twitter. Was just like, what is the most powerful, important part of the first third of Furuba? I mean, for me, it's definitely Kyo's true form stuff when he transforms into, I don't know what to call that. That's like an alien, but like, sure.
It is an alien. I don't know what she was thinking coming up with that thing. It is it's freaky, but it's still a little cute. I think the most important part of Kyo's transformation, but for those who don't know, the climax of the anime, the end of the anime, and the big turning point in the manga. And there's a note in the Yen Press editions where Natsuki Takaya says, hey, one thing that bothered me about the anime is that for me, revealing Kyo's true form was like the end of Act 1, was like, now we pull back the curtain. Like, okay, we've had the sitcom fun. Now we're going to pull back the curtain and show you the story that I really wanted to tell you. That's what she says about it. And she says in the anime, it was the end of it. And it ended on this high note with him being sort of healed and accepted for who he is in this monstrous form that he takes on. And she said, and I thought it came across like, everything's going to be okay now because he was accepted. Like that's the end of this Beauty and the Beast kind of story. And she's like, and that's not how I feel. And I thought that was a really valuable thing to say. But I understand why the anime chose that for a climax, because come on, of course.
Yeah,
they
it's a
chose that
good
for a
climax. I cried a lot. I mean, I also cried at the things like, you know, not just like Tohru accepting him, but everything with Kazuma, who's his master and who he treats as his dad. And like just those 2 chapters, I was like, these are the best chapters.
It's definitely a high point of the story. It's definitely a very impactful moment. Yeah, it's really it's hard to pick just one, but I think the thing that's so powerful about that moment is that it's not the cliche of this guy turns into this horrible monster and a girl saves him by saying, I love you anyway, you're fine just the way you are. It's not like that. And I think it's more complex than that. And I think that's the thing that really speaks to people, which is that Kyo didn't want somebody to just say like, oh, it's okay, you know, that's not who you really are, and I love you anyway, baby. Like he doesn't want that. Yeah, not that Tohru would say baby, but but he doesn't want that because that's what his mother. We didn't find out. No, I guess we do find out. We don't know exactly how his mother died, but we know that his mother died violently, tragically, and that people think that she killed herself. And his mother was not abusive to him. She wasn't cruel to him. She had a Tohru thing of always obfuscating her sadness, where she was like, it's okay, you're fine, you're okay, I love you, and you know, you're not a bad person, and it's okay. And she just didn't talk about the fact that if he doesn't wear this, basically it's a blessed Buddhist ring of beads that like basically keeps him under control. If he doesn't wear that, he turns into what is basically an undead blob of, it looks like a cat that got hit in the road and then all its fur melted off in the rain. Like it is, I understand, because I'm like, what is this? It looks a little like a xenomorph, but I understand the design a little bit when I think of it as like a cat that got like it's dead and it's got like stretched out and all its fur fell off. And they specifically say that it is a dead thing, that he smells like rotting flesh. And which helps take the edge, because it is a little cute, and it helps take the edge off the cuteness and be like, oh, it is a monster. It is this it's like a yokai, I guess. It's like a yokai of dead flesh. Gross. And you know, and so but anyway, but nobody's talking about this. And so what Tohru needed to do was not to say like, oh, everything's okay, let's just go back to the house, because she tries to do that. She tries to be her usual Tohru self, and he like slashes at her. He wounds her. He cuts her through her shoulder and scars her actually. But what she had to do was to come back to him and say like, I'm scared of you. I'm terrified. I don't even recognize you. When you speak, it doesn't even sound like you. I can't breathe because you smell so bad. All this shit. But she says, but I don't want to be without you in my life. And like, you know, I'm crying just talking about it, because it's like, holy shit, you know. And he you know, he kind of slowly changes back, and then he says like, you know, that's all I wanted from my mother. I just wanted her to say like, hey, this sucks and I'm scared of you and life is hard, but I want us to be together. Instead, she just said like, hey, it's okay, there's no problem, and like, I'm going to take care of everything, and like, you know, oh, I just love you so much, I want you all to myself, which is why I don't let people see you. And he's like, that's not the reason. You're lying to me. Why are you lying? Why are you talking about like this? Like, it's not a horrifying and sad. And then she just couldn't take it and died. We don't know exactly how she killed herself, but we'll find out. And that, I thought, was just a very complex and powerful emotion to express, that like, it's okay if you don't love everything about me. It's okay if there's things about me that you hate or are gross or are hurtful, just as long as you're like, I'm going to be here with you through it, you know? And that was like, oh, Jesus, you know, like, throw me into a well. I'm done. Like, you know, I'm just going to roll around on the ground and cry.
And yeah, and I also like, there's some, you know, Tohru never says that it's his true form. Like, there's all this stuff about it being his true form, where clearly it's like not his true form. It's, you know, a form. Tohru's like this other thing that Kyo becomes. Like, yeah, I don't like that thing. That's not fun. And I think it's very much contrasted with the chapter right after it of like, is Kazuma Kyo's true father? Like, what does it mean to be true here? And like, what is just another form? Yeah, what's real?
And it's such a big thing, because, and I think while the story hasn't become explicit about this necessarily, it's definitely giving you more than enough subtext where you can kind of figure out where it's like, oh, the curse is family. You know, like, you're like, what's the curse? Like, what's the zodiac curse? And it's like, the curse is that you can't choose your family. And in Japan, especially, you can't escape your family. Family is very important in Japan. And it's important over here. I think people don't really realize how important and accepted that, like, you act a certain way around your family, or your family is a certain way in America, even until they're not in that position, until they're on the outside, until they don't have a family anymore. And in Japan, it's even more so, because your family dictates so much more of your life under the government and Social Security and everything like that. Like you can lose your job because your father went to jail, that kind of thing. And it's really the Soma curse is being a Soma, is being in the family. And I think that when they talk about like Kyo's true father or his real father or his other form, like, his family is going to tell him, oh, this nasty, stinky, undead thing, that's your true form, that's your real self, and we have to cover it up with these beads. And really, he's in that position because of the curse. It's not his fault. It's because of something that somebody else did hundreds of years ago. But they blame him for it, and they say, well, if we treat you this way, we can accept you so long as you accept that you're worthless and you have to do everything that we say. And that's not real. Like that's just your screwed up family. That's not the way the real world would view you. And Tohru kind of brings that to light when she says, oh, this is this other thing. This is not your natural self. That's just this other thing that you have to live with. And yeah, the same thing is true for Kazuma. It's like he's not his real dad, and he obsesses over that a little bit, because he's like, I don't want you to be my real dad, because that means that you're going to get hurt and you're going to get blamed for things, and because this family is a curse, I don't want you to be my real dad. But he is his dad. He's become his dad in every sense that matters, that means anything. And that idea of choosing your own family, even though like technically Kazuma is a Soma, technically, but he's Kyo's real dad. We haven't met him yet, but he's not a good guy. And to have somebody that you can accept as a father, and it doesn't really matter whether he's your father on paper or to the government or to the rest of your horrible clandestine family, he's his real dad.
Yeah. I mean, this is definitely like playing with, the whole family bonds and like what's a healthy family bond and what is actually just like bondage tightening you up sort of deal.
Yeah. What is obligation? What is, oh, well, you're part of this. You're the rat of the zodiac, or you're the ox of the zodiac, which means you're like this, which means you have to fulfill this role, which means that you're this tool. Yeah. And that comes up near the end of volume 8, where Yuki says, like, I'm supposed to be the most blessed member of the Zodiac. Like, I'm born with even better looks than everybody. Like, all the Zodiac members are handsome, and I like that Natsuki Takaya gets away with this by saying, like, oh, that's the curse. They're, like, extra pretty because of the curse, right?
Yeah.
Because they're blessed by these spirits, possessed by these Zodiac spirits. And Yuki has the most. Like, he's the most blessed. He's good at he will be good at like absolutely everything that he does, and he's like the most handsome and pretty, because he's like beautiful like a girl and beautiful like a boy.
Yeah,
which he doesn't like. He just wants to be manly, but that's not the life he was born into. Yeah. And all this stuff, but he's like, but I'm just treated like a tool. I'm just swapped around because I'm like a valuable item. I'm not a person. I am the role that I was born into. I'm not treated like a person. And, it's really, I think, thoughtful and powerful to talk about this stuff that way, because that is how some people are raised within their family. And some people never realize this. They grow up and they never come to terms with it, because it's just accepted that whatever your family says about you, they know you best, is right. If they're not doing something outlandish like rejecting you or beating you, then that must be good enough. But the Soma family isn't like that. All the abuse that they carry out, for the most part, I mean, there's some beatings, but we'll get into that. For the most part, the abuse that they dole out is structural. It's just integral to the society's, to the family's structure. It's just how they treat people. It's just emotional neglect.
Yeah, and that's contrasted with, you see Toru's mom, and not everybody's parents outside of this Zodiac Soma family are great either. But you know,
there are some problem families, but there are some very loving families, and there are one or two loving families in Zodiac, but I don't think we have gotten to them.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to them.
It's made it clear that it is very difficult to be a loving parent in the Soma family, because you are under so much pressure and you're basically inducted, because the Soma family is gigantic and people get inducted, which is what happens to Momiji's mother. She's just like a nice German lady who met a Soma guy in university in Europe and married him and had a kid with him. And then she had to be dragged to the Soma complex. She had to move there immediately when she had a child because of the blood, right? That was the rabbit of the Zodiac. So she has to go live there. And so she has to she has to go live in this completely foreign place with all these people that she doesn't know, in this like harsh, rigid, weird family structure with this child who has weird gifts and talents, and she can't hold him without him turning into a rabbit, which is really weird, right? And it breaks her, and she can't handle it, and she's just like, I want a normal life. And so it's not so much that every Soma is just mean. It's that when you live under abusive conditions, abuse is cyclical. You can't be the person who breaks a cycle when you get drawn into it. And, it's tough, which is why it's like, oh, geez, Tohru has like this monumental task ahead of her if she chooses to pry too much into this family.
Yeah. At least Toru's she's not very prying. She's just like, oh, someone's come about my life, and then I hug them, and just because I want to see what animal they are.
Yeah. That's the most impetuous that Tohru ever gets, is she's like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, she's like,
I'm gonna do it.
Oh my god, this one.
Yeah. It's really very rude, and she knows it is, but she can't help herself. Sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah, she loves holding the cute animals. She can't help it.
Mm-hmm. I would too. I could never be in that position, because I would just be hugging people anytime they got on my nerves. Yeah. I'd be like, well, you know what? You're
a
fight
rat
with somebody
now.
and you shut him up.
Feel?
Now you're a pig.
Yeah.
So, I would fit in better in Ranma 1/2, I think, where they sort of do that all the time.
Okay, well, we have two more questions, and I think one of them dovetails into this, like, family stuff, but it is from @Mumbayat Movies on Twitter. I think I said that right?
Mumbayat Movies,
Mumbayat, okay. But I will read the second question first, because I think it goes more into what we've currently been talking about. So it's, do you see Fruits Basket as a humanist parable, i.e. about rejecting the potentially oppressive aspects of religion, or is it more nuanced in its attitude to faith/belief?
Well, so I internalized and related to Fruits Basket as somebody escaping a religious family structure that made them cult-like and like the Soma family in many ways. But I think that Fruits Basket itself is not directly concerned with religion. It can be applicable to religion, because it is literally a god ahead of the Soma family and these animal spirits that entertain him, and this giant legacy of money and stuff like that they kind of surround themselves with to pretend that they're happy. They're not. And I think that there are definitely parallels to a really harsh fundamentalist Christian or otherwise religious upbringing in other countries or whatever. But Japan is very agnostic as a country. There aren't particularly strong religious factions there. Things are more based around societal norms and governmental stuff like that. Anyway, but my point is, it's more social than it is religious pressure. And so I think the intent of the manga was to talk about humanism rejecting like the omnipresence of family and where you're from and what that means about you. Yeah. Because family and where you're from and what that says about you is so important in Japan compared to America. But I think it can be applied to all sorts of things. Anything where you're being judged for or perceived. I think that Haru's story factors into that really well, where Haru is the ox of the zodiac, and so he's the butt of jokes about being slow and stupid, because the only thing that's said about the ox in the old fairy tale is that the rat jumped on his head. The ox was like, I'm going to be the first one there, and the rat jumped on his head and rode him all the way to the banquet, went and jumped off ahead of him so he could be the first one. So everybody's like, haha, the ox got taken advantage of, and he's dumb and he's gullible and he's slow. And Haru internalizes that, and Haru's very smart, as it turns out. He's a poet, and we're introduced to him like sort of making like wry observations in like quiet, poetic ways. He's not like affluent like Shigure or Ayame or anything like that. He's slow and he's quiet, and he says things slow and steady and direct, but he speaks poetically, and he's thoughtful, and he's very good judge of character, and he's very empathetic. But he internalized all this stuff about I'm dumb and I'm slow and all this stuff like that, because it's what people told him his entire life, and it made him angry. And it literally resulted in a split personality that was rebellious, that's this sort of angry. And that's part of the curse too, is that there are some characters that have these animal traits, animal instincts that break out. And in his case, he has a black and a white patch to his personality, much like a cow does. Where the white is his true self, and the black is this rage monster that comes out because of how he's treated, how poorly he's treated in the family. And that's a pretty good metaphor for how repressed emotions can lead to basically a version of you that's not you, lashing out and rejecting everybody and getting angry. But anyway, but all of this happened. The only reason that any of this happened is because everybody told Haru who he was supposed to be, and in a negative way, and or just at all, really, and told them, like, this is your role, this is who you are, and we're just gonna make jokes. It's all good fun. We're your family. We love you, but we know you're dumb and slow. And there's no excuse for that. Like, you can't judge somebody based on what you think they're supposed to be, based on who they are in your family or whatever the case may be. And so I think that Takaya was talking about things like that can apply to a religious upbringing. If you're like, oh, good Christian boys and girls should be this way, but it can also apply to an agnostic or atheistic family that treats family members that way, as it did with the Soma family. Although I guess their religion is the zodiac, right? I guess. Yeah. You have no choice but to believe in it if you turn into an animal when girls hug you. You know, you just have. It's not a religion. It's just a fact.
Yeah, I guess the religion part is that they're always like, well, we can't defy Aikido. Like, Aikido's will is everything, since he's supposed to be God or whatever. But yeah, similarly, I can see the cult-like aspects of the Soma family and all these things. I think you can read that onto it, but I don't think that's like an explicit textual thing, They're definitely a cult, though. Like, that's just, they live in a compound. They
live in a literal compound. That's what it's called.
Yeah, they live in a literal compound. They can't defy Aikido. So, like, I guess if he told them to go, like, Jonestown on that, they'd have to do it or something. Yeah. Like, sort of deal.
Who knows how many generations of the Soma family there have been, like, what the heads of the family were like and what they told the Zodiac members to do, because they have to do it. And the thing that's really fascinating is that there's this entire, like, legion of servants and people who have been with the family forever, either are directly Soma members or like distant cousins, and they just want a little taste of that power and that money and that prestige. So they do what Akito says, and they don't even have to. The Zodiac members, like, have to. They don't have any other choice. If you told them to jump off a bridge, they just have to go do it. And it's it's kind of a screwed up situation.
Definitely. And I think that the belief that it deals with, since this asks if it has a more nuanced attitude towards faith/belief, again, is not a religious thing, but I think the core thesis of Fruits Basket is about believing in others without any preconceptions and loving them unconditionally despite their flaws and all these things. Like Tohru's mom's. So I guess I'm trying to think of where to start with this. Like, the thing that I did not realize that has truthfully stuck with me the most from Fruits Basket is apparently this, like, Tohru's mom is like, it takes more courage to believe in somebody. Like, it's really easy to doubt them. So it takes more courage to have belief in somebody being good than being bad. And Momiji tells this whole story. Momiji is, like, trying to convince Yuki and Kyo to not think of people as foolish. So he tells this whole story about some book they read in class that's, like, about a traveler who gives up everything for all these people that he meets along the way as he's traveling. They're like, give me money for my child, give me this. And everybody's like, he's just being tricked. Like, they don't actually need that money that desperately. And now he has nothing. Eventually he gets, like, he's only a head, then he loses his eye.
Yeah, we should clarify. He runs out of town and goes into goes into the forest, and there are monsters there who are like, I could really use your finger.
Yeah, like,
I could really use your arm. I'm hungry. My child is hungry, that kind of thing. And, and he's like, all right, I wish you happiness. And
I wish you happiness with my finger.
That's what he says. He just over and over is like, I wish you happiness. And,
yeah, but
eventually he dies.
Eventually he dies because he loses basically everything except his head. Body. Yeah, like, he's fine. So then, Momiji gets to the end of the story and he's like, do you really think that person was foolish? Like, I think that person was a wonderful person for, because basically I think this is an SJW story. It's a social justice warrior story.
But yeah, I mean, yeah.
About, like, don't blame the victim, blame the system
blame the system
and the people who were crappy to him, like,
Mm-hmm. And he's like, I think that person was wonderful because all he wanted was for other people to be happy. And he said, and he got what he wanted. He said that guy died happy because he was able to give to others, even if they didn't appreciate it. That's what he really wanted to do, and he was doing it for no other reason. And he's like, do you really think that person was foolish? And it's like, and admittedly, like, not everybody should be that person, but it's good to have people like that in the world. And I think that a lot of the Foolish Traveler, it's funny that you bring that up, because that is a story that I think a lot of people, if they're gonna start disagreeing with Fruits Basket or going, oh, I can't go there, like, the Foolish Traveler is a sticking point for people.
Oh yeah. Ooh, tell me about this controversy.
That was, and I did get that far in the radio drama, and I remember that being the most discourse-heavy episode, because most of the others would be like, oh, you know, I laughed, I cried, you know, that kind of thing. But this was like the most, like, I don't know how I feel about the message of the story, because it's not right for you to certainly not stick up for yourself and allow you to be taken advantage of. And it's true, like, Tohru does need people protecting her, and she does have to address some of the emotional coping mechanisms and problems that she has that are unhealthy, but that doesn't come up till later. So, but later volumes of the story will absolutely challenge Toru's beliefs and way of life a little, through another character that appears that's like male Tohru, who goes through the pain so she doesn't have to, but that will come later. But I think the point that it was making is not that everybody should just give everything to everyone unconditionally. I think it was like, because you have people like this in the world, you know, other people can survive, and wouldn't it be great if we could all be happy just trusting and giving to one another unconditionally, you know, and acknowledging that that's not possible, but like, wouldn't it be great if we could? And
it's like, wouldn't it be great if you flipped your worldview to think that he was the good one, and to actually be like, hey, those people were shitty? Like,
exactly. It's not so much that like, oh, that guy's the best person ever. It's like, maybe you should think about it like this was the hero of the story.
Yeah, and I think Yuki, bringing up Yuki, because Yuki does have a line when they're talking about Kisa and how, you know, she's being bullied. Kisa's the tiger. She's being bullied at school. She stops talking. She's in this really bad place and all these things. And they're like, well, Kisa is really, really kind and all these things. And Yuki's like, so, you know, somebody with like Kyo would be like, you just need to learn how to beat people up or whatever, you know, sort of deal. But Yuki's like, you know, getting strong is good. Being strong is good, but it's not like the answer. And we are taught that society is fulfilled by this, you know, survival of the fittest. But like,
you need to be tough because other people are going to bully you. And he's like, maybe tell people not to bully you.
Yeah.
You know, maybe tell the bullies to back the, you know, off. You know?
Yeah. And Yuki's like, and he just says, but we're not animals, we're human, like equating that kindness is the thing that makes them human. And he's like, you know, maybe we should just learn to respect each other, like, because that is the thing that will make us human. Animals just fight on like instinct and all these things. Right. And we're trying to reject our animal forms, clearly, because...
Yeah, and it's like, well, you're judging us as animals, and you think it's okay to treat us this way because of it. And it is an interesting way to tie the Zodiac thing into, like, broader themes about compassion and love and stuff like that. I think that, like, the manga's first radical statement in that regard, because it gets a little radical with how it talks about human nature. It does. I mean, all this stuff is reassuring, but I think it wouldn't be powerful if it didn't have some balls to it sometimes, and it does. I think that the first time the manga makes a radical statement or a thought-provoking statement about humanity is in the 4th chapter, where Tohru, sweet, adorable, optimistic, loves everyone Tohru, says that her mother taught her that people aren't born kind, that they aren't born good, which I thought was like kind of, every time I go back and read that, I'm like, oh, it's so weird that, and the Yen Press's version is actually more explicit about this. Tokyopop's version, one of the other things they did that's not great characterization wise is they made Tohru more of a doormat and more like just kind of a babe in the woods, like starry eyed. They made her a little less astute, and in Yen Press's version, she has moments of self-loathing. She has moments of not aggression, but like standing up for people. And I mean, you can see that. I mean, like she pushes people and pulls people away from bad situations and stuff like that. Like throughout the manga, she's not completely doe-eyed, doesn't know what's going on. And she tells Yuki, who is like, oh, I'm not kind. The only reason I ever do things is because I want people to like me, and that's not kindness. You should do it with no ulterior motive. And she's like, there's no rules for kindness, Yuki. She tells him there's no rules for kindness. Nobody's born kind. She said, we understand selfishness and cruelty because everybody is selfish in the exact same way. Because we come into the world selfish. All we want is food, attention, Like, babies just scream. They do not care about the feelings of the parents. They just scream. They don't have the ability to care about, she's like, so you don't start with kindness. As you grow older, you learn what kindness is, and then you choose to be kind every day in your own way. And for everybody, that's different. Kindness takes on completely different shapes depending on who you are. And that's why it's hard to trust people, because what kindness is, to the way that you express love or kindness might be different from how somebody else expresses love. So you might be hurting each other because you just don't understand that person's version of kindness. And, and as it's kind of a radical statement, it's kind of a big deal for this like really sweet, I just love everybody character to say, people aren't born kind. They aren't. They have to choose it, and they'll choose it in ways that are different from one another. So there's misunderstandings. Right. And it's like, oh, right. Tohru's really, Tohru's really emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, Tohru is really, really astute. I think the Yen Press's version definitely made me like Tohru more, because I felt her astuteness more. Like, yeah, what she's just good at seeing how everybody's kindness takes shape, because I think the end of that scene with Yuki is her being like, your kindness is like a candle, like it's soft and like it like lights up suddenly and all these things or whatever. And so I think
and Yuki blushes.
Yeah, and Yuki blushes, whatever, it's fine.
Oh, not a Yuki girl, I see.
No, Kyo all the way. Come on.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, like Tohru's just good at being like, I see that everybody else is trying to be kind. And, specifically with Yuki in his relationship with his brother Ayame, I think Tohru is like, I see that they don't connect.
Yeah.
But I think they are both definitely trying to connect. They just like can't, but they're both trying to be kind in those things.
Yeah. It's because Yuki's personality is just like, I want everybody to like me. I will do, he can't really be himself. He's perfect at everything, but it's because he is pushing himself to always consider others' feelings and be like, I'm weird and terrible and I don't want anybody to know that. So I will just act, like he hates himself, but he has to act like in a way that where he thinks everybody will like him, right? And Ayame doesn't give a flying flip what the world thinks of anything that he does at all. He is just following his id and following his passions. And he's, even though he lives under this curse, like I think Takaya said, like he is the least afflicted by the curse because he's just one of those people who just doesn't care what other people think about him. He has like two friends. He has two friends and another. Yeah, we have met her as of the volume.
We've met her.
A sweetheart / I guess she's like she's another one of his best friends, but he has feelings for her. I do. It's weird because I think he also has feelings for Hattori, but they just didn't. I guess we can kind of address the elephant in the room that there's a lot of gayness in Fruits Basket, but it's never really. Yeah. There's no gay couplings. It's just there's a lot of bisexuals. There's a lot of bisexuals is the answer to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of cross-dressing too, but it's kind of negative and stuff. So
I guess I actually thought that Fruits Basket is pretty positive on cross-dressing, but that's neither here nor there. It's either way, the reasons that characters cross-dress is multitudinous, and the bi-ness of half the cast is very hard to ignore. But anyway, all this to say that Ayame has like two friends and a sweetheart, and that's all that he needs. And he doesn't give a crap if anybody else likes him or not. His mom, the teachers, anything. He just follows his bliss. And so Yuki can't possibly understand him because he was raised with very different expectations and he has very different trauma. And Ayame was part of that because Ayame wasn't there for him when he was a child. So but Ayame doesn't apologize for this in the right way because he just doesn't know how to cater to other people's feelings because he just doesn't do it. He only cares about what he wants to do. So, it's fascinating. They both care about each other and they're both trying to reach out. They just can't quite meet.
Yeah. Tohru has to help them. She needs to guide them a little more. But
she needs to help them by hiding a snake version of Ayame because Ayame is the snake in her clothes so he can spy on their conversation.
Yeah. Which
was a weird scene.
It's fine. Ayame is using that snake form to his advantage a lot of the time.
He does. If you just turned into a snake when it got cold, wouldn't you? Because that's the rough thing is because he's a reptile, like of the many like hiccups that various Zodiac members have. He like can't stand like an unseasonably cold April. He turns into a snake, and it's like that's gotta suck though, because Japan could get real cold in winter. Is he just like I guess he just wears like big fur coats.
He just stays inside. Okay, so I guess we can move on to our last question. was actually about the radio drama, which I guess came up with the Traveler story. But it is, if you were adapting the manga as a radio drama now, what would you change from your early efforts and why?
Just on a dumb, superficial level, I believe I changed first year, second year, third year labels to like freshman, junior, and senior, and I just skipped sophomore because I thought it would be easy. That's such a dumb, it's such a dumb pedantic thing, but it always bugged me.
You're like, America can't do this.
Yeah,
so.
I Americanized it a fair amount. I didn't Americanize. I don't know. I picked and choose what I Americanized. Obviously, I would just little things like I wouldn't have Uo say the R word because she says it a couple times, like stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, I guess if there was anything I could have changed, it would have been like to start it in the era of Patreon where I could have kept it going. I don't know. But I don't know. I was happy with, honestly, I had no resources and like very little time, and everybody was just doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. They weren't getting paid. So I'm really proud of what I did. I guess I would just want more resources, and I would modernize it. The way I would modernize it now is to take into account how much anime fans know about Japan, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change first year, second year to more American terms or anything like that. But I was really happy with the work that I did on it, so I wouldn't drastically change anything. I would just want more resources, to be honest.
Okay, fair enough. So I feel that most of what we had written down for themes did come up naturally in this question segment, so we can skip to Art Corner unless you have objections.
No, not at all. Yeah, honestly, there's so many stories in those first 8 volumes because every chapter is kind of discussable. Like, I'm sure I missed some things that I like about the manga, but there's just no way to like sort of cram it all in. So
I know. Well, normally I do a character walkthrough, but I was like, that's going to take forever if I do that.
There's so many, and we haven't even met them all. There are 2 Sohmas that we haven't really met. We met, she had like a line at the end of volume 8. We met Rin Soma.
Yeah.
But we've met almost all of the Zodiac, haven't even filled out the Zodiac, and a bunch of non-Zodiac characters. Like, there are simply too many. That's the other thing I like about it is that like, I like stories that have like a bunch of different characters and they all sort of have their own emotional thing that's unique to them. And yeah, if you like that, Fruits Basket's a playground because it's got a bazillion characters and they're pretty much all done justice. The worst thing that happens is that if you like Ritsu, he does not show up again.
Yeah.
ever. Like, he's referenced sometimes, but like, and he has a good story and I really like Ritsu's story, but he doesn't appear again. He's fine. He'll get over his trauma. It's okay.
Yeah,
fine.
he's fine.
He's fine. And so like the worst thing that happens is that like Ritsu gets the shortest stick of anybody, and he still gets a good story. So like everybody gets a really nice exploration of characters.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll keep coming up. We have 2 more podcasts. We'll make sure we'll be like, did we check a box to talk about?
Who else?
Everybody?
Who else do we leave out? We didn't even talk about Hattori's. I don't know. I really liked Hattori's story, but it is like more melodramatic than most of them, I would say.
It goes
has violence
it goes
and has
0
trauma
to 60 really fast. Yeah.
Yeah, real quick. Yeah. I think the thing I liked most about Hattori's story is the idea that he thinks because he loved and lost that's the best he can do because he knows. Hattori cares so much about everybody, and he knows that all these other kids in many ways had it worse than him, partly because of him. It's his job to erase memories of people that have learned about the secret and aren't supposed to know. And so he's hurt people because he's erased memories of family members and friends and stuff like that. And he's like, look, I fell in love with a woman and I had just 2 months where I felt safe and happy and accepted, and that's it, and I don't need any more. And the thing I think that moves me about Hattori's story is that even though he has all these effed up relatives, they still come through for him and say, no, you deserve more, and like push him to find love again, which, and I'm sure he will someday in later volumes, but it's like that I think is the most meaningful thing is that it doesn't, because I feel like there's a lot of anime that do that with an older character who he's just like, I'm too old and I've loved and lost, and that's the end of their story. Like he's 28 years old and he's just gonna watch over the teenagers because he lost his waifu. Like, that's a lot of anime. And I like that Fruits Basket is like, no, your life's just starting. You learned from this really awful experience, and you can keep going forward. And I like that a lot about Hattori's story.
Yeah, and then, since Hattori is the one who can erase memories, it reminded me that I like Momiji's line where he's like, I want to remember all my memories.
Oh God, I will just start crying profusely if I have to think about Momiji's story because it's so good. Well, no, we should talk about it, but it's so good.
They're happy tears. Okay, that's good.
I should clarify that Shigure is my favorite. Momiji is a very close second. In fact, I think in this, I don't use Skype, but so I made up a Skype name for us to just do this, and then I'll uninstall Skype. But it is Momiji Soma because I love.
I know. I thought you were gonna say Momiji because of that, and then you didn't.
You know, I guess I couldn't talk about him yet because Momiji's biggest developments haven't happened yet. He is Momiji is like Tohru, but has suffered more. Like he is a little perfect. Like that's the other thing is like Shigure has so many problems and so many flaws. Momiji is just a very, very good boy. You know, he's gone through so much hardship and he's come out of it like very self-aware and astute and understanding about his emotional problems, and like that's really inspiring. Like Momiji like needs the least amount of therapy of everybody, and it's not because he didn't go through less hardship. He went through more. You know, so
yeah. He remembers it all because he wants to learn from it and not hide from it.
Exactly. He doesn't. Yuki and Kyo and a lot of these other chuckleheads bury their feelings. And Momiji says, like, I think about this I never want to forget what my mother did to me because even though it hurts, I know someday it won't because I get to watch my little sister grow up, you know, and hopefully interact with her someday, you know, that kind of thing. And let me tell you, that tore me up also as somebody who has a little sister who is still in the family that I don't speak to anymore and that I was very close to at the time. So, you know, maybe, you know, it's going to take a long time, but maybe as my sister reaches adulthood, you know, things will change. But I have to hold on to that because what else are you going to do? You know, you can't bury those things. You can't just say like, I'll forget about it. I'll move on. You have to live with it, and you have to like live with it until the pain is manageable.
Yeah. Okay. So you relate to Momiji a lot then.
Yeah. I'm nowhere near as cute or fun as Momiji. I think like my sense of humor is more acerbic, like Shigure's, but Momiji is just, I don't know, he's just like a guiding light that everything's going to be okay kind of a thing. And so he's pleasant to have in the story. And he's still a little bit of a pervert. Like he's not like pure. Yeah. He's like, I look like I'm 8, but I'm actually 15. And
I want to sleep with Tohru.
To my advantage. I want to sleep in Tohru's room. And it's like, you know, you're 15 years old. You're not 8. She doesn't know that, you know, and, you know, but I can't blame him because that's the other thing is like, we don't get into it until later volumes, I guess. I keep saying, it happens in later volumes, but like Momiji is, you know, a little resentful of the fact that his aspect of the curse, I don't know what is some joke about the rabbit and youth or something like that, but that he looks like that, right? That he's so totally. Tiny, but he embraces it to the fullest. He wears the girls. Oh man. Okay. If we have to talk about one thing, I don't want to leave out Haru and Momiji coming to school for the first time and the great commentary on Japanese school uniforms and wardrobe.
Oh yes. They have a great battle about it.
It's really good. I thought it's especially because it was written in like 1998 or something like that. And it was like, this is cutting. This is great. But for those who don't know, Momiji and Haru, Momiji being the rabbit and Haru being the ox, come to school and they can't do anything about their hair. That's the other thing that makes the Sohmas stand out is that the curse gives them the hair color and the eye color of the animal that possesses them, and they can't do anything about it. So the schools just kind of have to allow it. I assume they're paid handsomely by the Soma family to just sort of let it happen. But he comes to school in the girl's uniform because he's itty bitty and it looks cute on him. Like I think he's wearing pants. He's not wearing a skirt, but it's cute. It looked great. The little sailor uniform looked much better on him than the collared suit. And the student council president, who is just this stick up his ass, like,
yeah.
Hey, again with the everyone is bi, although I think he's just gay. He's got a big crush on Yuki, and he comes stomping down the hall and he's like, Momiji, you can't wear that girl's uniform. Don't you have any pride as a man? And he's like, well, it looks better on me. It looks better on me. Stop picking on me. And Haru like turns to him and says something. I don't have the exact translation here, but it's like, if I wore a 3-piece suit, does that mean I'm not a yakuza, like a thug? Does that make you should respect this guy because he's wearing like proper attire? And he's like, and if I didn't have ears pierced, does that mean I won't kick your ass? Because I will do it right here, right now. Yeah. He said, I could take out these piercings, I could dress exactly how you want me to do, and I will still kick your butt because I'm still badass. And it's like, yeah, like the clothes, all the stuff is he's saying the student council president argues that you have to wear these clothes because otherwise everyone will be uncomfortable. It's not fair to the other students if you don't look exactly like them. And he's like, if I look exactly like them, I'll still be different on the inside. And I'm like, yeah, you tell him, I'll still be different on the inside, and I should do what matches my heart. But he says that in a badass Haru way.
Yeah.
And then the student council president, because he's still like, well, you can't prove to me that that's your natural hair color. I know everybody says, oh, your natural hair color, so you don't have to dye it, but you can't prove it. And then the best joke in maybe all the Fruits Basket happens because he takes the student council president by the collar. He takes him into the men's room. There's a pause. The student council president comes out of the men's room and he's like, the evidence is irrefutable. Yeah, there's many mysteries in the world that are unknown to me, and you know what he did, but they don't ever say it. But it's great.
But then Tohru asks, and that's what
does.
makes it funny too, because she's like, "What did you show him in the bathroom?" And you're like, "Tohru,
Tohru, no." The carpet matches the drapes.
Pure innocent Tohru.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, okay, that scene is good with cross-dressing, because I think also Yuki and Kyo are like, can't he just do what he looks better in? Like, just leave him alone sort of deal. I guess the cross-dressing bothered me with Ritsu, because they were like, he dresses in men's kimonos or whatever, and he needs to grow out of it. Women's kimonos, and he needs to grow out of that. And I'm like, does he? Like... It's fine.
Yeah, well, I read the I just read that chapter because I was wondering about that myself. I read it in the new translation, and it's a little nuanced. So none of the family has issues with him wearing. Excuse me, none of his non-parents. So Shigure and everybody else don't have problems with him wearing women's kimonos. They think he looks beautiful, and they're like, "You look great, you just fine." But the problem is that he has a problem with it because he wants to be masculine, and that is its own. You can deconstruct that as to like, okay, but if he's more comfortable in women's clothes, he shouldn't hate himself for not being masculine. And ultimately what they do is encourage him to like, okay, well, you can do these things to make yourself comfortable enough to wear men's clothes, which I think is constructive and healthy. But there's also the matter of, well, couldn't he just, and also the way that it's written, it was written in 1999 or 2000 or something like that. And the way it's written, it seems pretty clear that Ritsu makes more sense as like a trans woman character.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the only things that make sense about it is that he's a closeted trans woman, but the story doesn't take it that way. The story takes it just in the direction of, well, he's happiest in women's clothes, but he hates himself because of this, because he feels like it makes him feel weak. And so I wasn't offended. I really wasn't offended by the way the story is told. It was just sort of out of date, I think. And but I appreciated the nuance of it, and certainly he wasn't being shamed for wearing women's clothes. The issue was more that he can't stop apologizing and self-loathing and causing problems for people because he's like, I know it's terrible that I wear women's clothes. Yeah. Like, we don't care. Shut up. That was the real issue, was that he was so self-hating about it, and that his parents obviously didn't approve of it. But they don't come back into the story. Again, we never hear from Ritsu again after the whole, after Toru's message to him, which is valuable. Her message to him is, we're not born with like a purpose that's given to us that we have to be that way. We have to find our own purpose. We have to find our own reason for living. And if your reason for living is if you want to wear women's clothes, or if you want to become strong enough that, again, this is a problematic thing to say, but if you want to become strong enough that you don't have to fall back on wearing women's clothes to be comfortable, then that's your decision. There's nothing written in the stars. It's you choose your purpose. And then that seems to do it fine for Ritsu. So we just don't see him again after that.
Yeah,
he starts dating Shigure's editor, and we assume that love solved his problems.
Yeah, which is seated in this. So I was like, oh, they're definitely a couple. Yeah, it's just totally, they're fine.
Yeah, they're fine. They are definitely together. They're an item. Their anxiety can drive each other insane. Yeah. That's the other thing. Is like, I'm not sure like the most anxious person and the most anxious person should be dating, but it seems to work out because they just commiserate on what's making them anxious, and it calms them down, and it's fine. So yeah, it's kind of weird. It seems like maybe in the long run that could be a problem, but it's sweet.
Yeah, so I guess it's just my problem with Ritsu is that I'm like, this does feel like something that's from the 90s, where it's like it doesn't want to admit that he's a trans woman, but that's fine. Whatever. It can't be perfect.
No, of course not. And that, I think it being of its time is part of what gives it its charm. It's like, hey, isn't it great that these things were being said in this manga in 1997, but at the same time, it was 1997. So you go back and forth. You go back and forth on it.
Yeah. So I guess I just wanted to address the art, which does change a lot throughout the story, but early art discussion, because it is very cute despite having a lot of same face and roughness to it, I feel. I love whenever the characters, Kyo will be a human, but then he has cat ears and a tail and stuff. I'm like, yay, he looks so cute. And I think that's part of what draws people in, is the art. Again, I feel like Fruits Basket has a lot of things that people on the surface are like, it's fun because it's a reverse harem and like there's such cute art, they're animals, and I'm like, that's just a marketing ploy to get you to read something real deep.
We're gonna make you feel, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the early art, I wasn't drawn to the art as much initially. It is, very 90s. And it's also, I think early Takaya art was really, really busy. There's a lot of line weight. There's a lot of line weights. There's a lot of screen tones that are like different screen tones in a small space. Like it's just busy, and it gets dark sometimes because there's so much inking and so much happening in the frame. And then as time wore on, and also after, so it should be noted that Takaya is left-handed, and right after the Ritsu chapter, which we were just talking about, she had a injury or / disorder to her hand where she could no longer move it.
Yeah.
And so she had to take a break for a year and undergo a surgery that made it so she could move her left hand again. And she had to retrain herself how to draw. So the art does change. There's a little bit of a rough period, and then it just comes out completely different. It's kind of like when somebody goes into a coma and then they wake up and they speak in an accent or something like that, which that's not common, but it has happened before, where somebody will speak English with an accent after they come out of a brain injury. And it's kind of like that with her retraining her hand, because then her art became much more, I thought it's much stronger, but it's much sparser. It's not as cute and energetic. It is like a lot of space and a lot of creative use of space and a lot of color blocking that is not busy. It's like it's like specific tones that like are kind of minimalist. So it's usually like beautiful bodies in a sort of a spread that is that gives you a lot of space to work with and to breathe. So the manga is a lot more, but the art is stronger. Like it's much cleaner.
Yeah.
And like the line weight is very thin, and the colors are not, or the screen tones are not like, there's not a bunch of different ones. It's like black and then white, and then there's a very soft gradient of gray. And, so it's very different, but it fits the tone of the story had gotten so dark by that point that it fit better. Even the jokes were like, there's not a whole lot of high energy. It's much more it's much more peaceful and room to breathe, I think.
Yeah, I think what's trippy about, even from a character design point, like reading the Yen Press editions, is that the covers and stuff have their later character designs, and then you open it and you're like, that's not what Tohru looks like though. Right here, like
those giant 90s eyes.
Yeah, giant 90s eyes are not conveyed in this new cover. What's up? Need to read the Tokyopop one for that, I guess. I don't know.
Right, yeah. So I prefer her modern art certainly to her old art, but I mean, I love all of it, and I love the story underneath it, which is what matters most. But
yeah. Okay, so this is the Chinese, Fruits Basket is all about the Chinese zodiac, and normally we do a love quiz, but for now, BuzzFeed has a quiz that is, can we guess your Chinese zodiac based on your taste in food quiz. So we're going to see if it can. First, we have to establish what Chinese zodiac sign we actually are. I believe we're both snake if we're 28.
No.
You're not snake?
I'm the horse. I was born in 1990, so.
Oh, see, I was born in 90, but like before the cutoff, like 5 days before the January cutoff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
the horse is most of the year, I think, and the snake is early. Well, it's good that we're not the same one. So
that's true. That's good. Okay. So the first question is, what's your favorite way to eat potatoes? And of course, there are going to be 12 answers. So prepare yourselves, y'all. It's curly fries, cheesy baked potato, tater tots, mashed potatoes, French fries, crinkle cut fries, sweet potato fries, potato wedges, hash browns, chili cheese fries, In-N-Out's animal style fries, or sorry, I don't eat carbs.
I like how that's really specific. Like, if you don't live on the West Coast, you're not going to know what In-N-Out's animal style fries are.
But we both do, so we know.
Yeah, right? So, yeah. Well, definitely not those, because those In-N-Out's fries are pretty disposable. I'm torn between mashed potatoes and sweet potato fries. I'm going to go with mashed potatoes. because sometimes you got to be in the mood for sweet potatoes. I think I'm always okay with mashed potatoes.
That's a good reason. I'm torn between mashed potatoes and tater tots, and I think I'm going to go with tater tots just to be different from you.
That's plan, yeah.
Okay, now it says, now pick a sweet treat. Red velvet cake, brownies, banana bread, carrot cake, frozen yogurt, Ben & Jerry's pint, deep fried ice cream, cupcakes, chocolate chip cookies, apple pie, pumpkin pie, and Rice Krispie treats. It's so difficult because they're all so good.
Those are all really good.
Oh.
I'm a pie kind of guy, so I'm trying to decide between apple and pumpkin.
Okay.
I think pumpkin is more seasonal. I'm going to go with apple.
I think I'm going to go like solid banana bread. Always gets me pretty excited, not going to lie.
Banana bread is great.
Yeah. Next question is, what's your guilty pleasure? And the options are apparently, bad chain food restaurants. So we got Chipotle, Popeyes, McDonald's, In-N-Out Burger, Domino's, Taco Bell, KFC, Dunkin' Donuts, Steak and Shack, Jack in the Box, Burger King. Ew, none.
Yeah, I gotta go with In-N-Out. That's definitely the most like not death tasting of the fast food chains. I would say
your California
it tastes
showing
healthy. Yeah. Well, it tastes healthy because it's just a very light burger. Definitely not Chipotle. I hate Chipotle. Chipotle is like so gross. Anyway, what about you?
I think I actually want to go with Popeyes. I know I'm shameful, but like
no, not at all. It's better than KFC.
Yeah, no, somebody had Popeyes on the bus the other day, and it just made the bus smell so good, and I was like, I hate you right now.
No, Popeye's chicken is a respectable choice, absolutely.
Okay, the next question is, how about some seafood? We've got shrimp.
How about it?
How about it? I don't know. Shrimp, oysters, lobster, salmon, octopus, calamari, mussels, crab, cod, tuna, scallops. No seafood for me. To be honest, I am not a seafood person, so I think I have to choose no seafood for me.
Which is a picture of Regina George for some reason.
Yeah, for some reason.
Yeah. Oh, man, I like all this stuff. God.
Oh, no.
Right, this is difficult. I like all of these, and I'm not like super pumped about one over the others. I just like seafood. Let's see. Well, I think it's in keeping with my slightly bland choices so far that I pick salmon. I eat probably more salmon than any of the rest of this, so I eat more salmon. I'll go with that.
Okay, fair enough. What's your go-to breakfast? We got pancakes, waffles, omelet, scrambled eggs and bacon, avocado toast, Captain Crunch.
Millennial jokes here. Yeah.
Millennial jokes. Our West Coast is showing again. Oatmeal, acai bowl, fruit smoothie, cream cheese bagel, eggs Benedict, cinnamon roll. Ooh.
Straight to the cinnamon roll. I don't eat. I actually only eat bananas and like apples and stuff for breakfast. So if I'm gonna have like a more substantial, it's gonna be something disgustingly sugary. So.
Interesting. I probably am just gonna go bagel because that is what I was like. This is a cheap meal to have in my days where I could not afford real food, and I was like,
no, totally. I feel you. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite fruit? We've got banana, apple, cherries, mango, blueberries, pineapple, strawberries, kiwi, papaya, raspberries, orange, and grapes.
I like all of these. I eat bananas more than any of the rest of these, though. So I don't know. It's not my favorite.
You're like, but they're just there.
Yeah, they're there. So what do you think?
I aspirationally try to eat a lot of strawberries. Like, they're good. They're sweet. I like to put them on waffles when I do have a waffle. Or maybe a bagel, just sprinkle some. Cut it up, put it on top.
I think my favorite is mango. I don't have it very often, but if I'm going to pick like a flavor of something outside of just eating the fruit raw, I think it's usually mango, so I'll go with mango.
That's fair. That's a good reason, too. I do like mango-flavored things as well. Ooh, cheese question. Which cheese does it for you? Mozzarella, smoked Gouda.
Getting a little personal, BuzzFeed.
I know. Cheese is very contentious. Okay. Cheddar, brie, camembert, blue. It's so weird to just say blue cheese without cheese at the end. Yeah. What's up? Colbert, Colby Monterey Jack. Long name. Hard for me. Cream cheese. Edam. I don't even know that one.
Edam.
Edam. I am not cheesing well, apparently. Feta, gorgonzola, and parmesan.
Not that I have strong feelings on cheese, but probably brie because it's a little creamy and sweet.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right, cool. Hey, we got the same answer on one of these.
Oh, boy. Okay. What chip are you bringing to the party? Nacho cheese Doritos, Pirate's Booty, Tostitos, salt and vinegar Pringles, Lay's Classic, sea salt and vinegar kettle chips, Lay's Barbecue, Cheetos, sour cream and onion Pringles, salt and pepper kettle chips, Lay's sour cream and onion, Flamin' Hot Cheetos. Okay, 100% Pirate's Booty. Like,
It's real good. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I like Pirate's Booty a lot, but I eat more original Pringles than any of the rest of these, so I gotta go with Pringles, to be honest.
Okay. That was the final question, and BuzzFeed, you cannot guess what zodiac sign I am.
You couldn't do it, yeah.
Because I got dog.
It called me a pig.
Oh, rude.
How rude.
The dialogue for dog is fantastically fabulous. Absolutely. That sums up these beautiful creatures. The dog is arguably the sweetest animal in the Chinese astrology. Simply put, they are happy-go-lucky, cheeky, kind, thoughtful, understanding, generous, and selfless. Is that Shigure? No. That's not.
Nope. But that's the enigma of Shigure. Like, I guess when we get to that part of the story, I will, like, explain what I think Takaya was doing by giving him the opposite personality of his animal.
Yeah.
Because there is a sort of a twist. That's what he says about, like, oh, I'm not, like, my curse is unique from the rest of you guys' curse, and I think that's... You know, I can't spoil why, but once we get there, it's like, oh, that's why he's a little bit reversed. He really is very much like his zodiac animal, but it just seems reversed because of the circumstance that he's in. Yeah. Pig is loving, caring, thoughtful, honest, genuine, and happy, sociable, selfless, understanding, compassionate, adorable, and positively cuddly. Which, I mean, that's certainly true of Kagura. It's just that she feels all these things a little too strongly and gets violent sometimes.
Yeah, as many characters are wont to do, apparently.
Yeah,
just
yeah. It's like, here's their normal personality. Yeah, here's their normal personality, and then they have violent outbursts. So.
And Kyo is just always somewhere, like, solidly in the middle. It's always a little ready to have a violent outburst at any moment.
Yeah, at any time.
Anytime at all. So we're not going to have a shipping corner, but I think we do have to be like Yuki or Kyo and explain.
Right, yeah.
That's like, who did you want Tohru to be with when you were now, as a child, like whatever. It has to be out there.
Right, yeah.
You seem to be Team Yuki.
No, not at all, actually.
Okay, good.
I was teasing you earlier because I was like, oh, you know, Yuki clearly has a thing for Tohru. But no, when I actually am really proud of a prediction I made when I was a teenager reading the manga. It's nothing to be proud of, but I was very proud of it. But I was very proud of it when I was a teenager. I made a prediction within the first couple volumes of the manga that everybody laughed at me for. They were like, oh, that's weird. Like that's kind of screwed up and weird. And it turned out to be true. It actually turned out to be exactly where the story was going. And I patted myself. It was the only like exact prediction that I'd ever made about Fruits Basket. But like the long and short of it is that prediction allowed me to say that there's no way Yuki is going to end up with Tohru, and definitely she should end up with Kyo. So I was Kyo and Tohru all the way, I would say.
Okay, I know what you must have predicted then, but we
right,
will,
yeah.
we will
I was
not
like, I don't think Yuki likes Tohru like that. I think Yuki likes Tohru like this. And people are like, that's weird and creepy. And then you get to the manga, it's like, I told you.
You're like, I knew it all along.
I knew it, you know. And I think it was because I understood the psychology a little bit. Because, like, again, like I related to Yuki, and I was like, I feel like I understand what this guy's looking for, and I don't think that he's trying to date Tohru. I think there's something else going on with this guy.
That's fair. I think I just liked Kyo and Tohru better, and I think I do not understand Yuki as well. Perhaps it is also that his mysteries are drawn out very long and hinted at very sparsely throughout each chapter, and you're like, all right, Yuki.
He's secretive, yeah.
Wait, lay it on me.
Yeah.
I'm
Tell
ready.
me how you feel. When he's like, no.
And he's like, no, I just hate myself and whatever. And I'm like, all right, come on, Yuki.
Right, yeah, keep it in.
We gotta get there.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, when you, and just regardless of whether or not, you know, you like one character more than the other, I think that seeing Yuki and Tohru together, it is like, it's just kind of pleasant. Like, she doesn't challenge him. She helps him, but she doesn't, like, I don't know, like, if they have a conversation together, I think Yuki and Tohru, you could see it, like, it would look like a conversation that Tohru has with any number of other people. She's being nice. He's being nice back. They're just kind of bull crapping about like basic stuff. And if she has a conversation with Kyo, it gets weird very quickly because she'll say something to him and he's like, that's weird or that's dumb. And she's like, well, I don't really think so. And then he blushes. She's exposed him in some way, and then he's embarrassed and he blushes. And then he's like, don't wander around like a space cadet or you'll get in trouble. You can wander around like a space cadet if I'm with you. That doesn't mean anything weird. But you can if I'm with it's just so much more entertaining to watch them sort of fumble around each other. So I think that's part of it as well, as you just kind of want to see their rapport grow. Whereas with Yuki and Tohru, things are immediately already pleasant, but she doesn't pry. You have to pry with Yuki. She heals him in other ways, but she doesn't pry into his business. Whereas Kyo just dumps his business everywhere, and she kind of has no choice but to stumble over it.
Yeah. Well, I think they also have better, I think she is trying harder with Kyo too. Like she climbs up to a roof with him, is like, teach me martial arts, like punch. And he's like, oh my God, that's pathetic and sad. But yes, like.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Yeah. So they have cuter scenes. I'm like, obviously team.
Well, she has the garden with Yuki though. She helps him grow. She cooks the food that he grows. He grows food and she cooks it.
Ugh, whatever.
No, I think they all belong together in some capacity.
They should all live together happily forever.
Yeah, well, they do for several years for certain.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess it's weird to ask if we have any final thoughts since we're going to do 2 more podcasts. But if there's anything you want to bring up now, desperately, now's the time. I guess.
So a scene I really like that I'm trying to think of like stuff that really sums up the manga's emotional message, which you were talking about earlier as being like, the need to trust in people and to throw away prejudgments or misconceptions and just believe in people and that they will become their best self if you believe in them. Mm-hmm. And I think one scene that always really struck me, because I remember, so I'm one of the people who doesn't like the Evangelion TV series ending very much. For people who've seen Neon Genesis Evangelion. And I've come around on Evangelion over time, mostly because the rebuild movies have been so good, and they've addressed a lot of what the issues that I had with the show and its message and its framing originally. And I don't think Evangelion is bad. I think it's very good. It's just that the ending really bugs me. And as the ending as it was originally written for the TV series, End of Evangelion is great, but it's a downer. It's a downer. So that's a whole different conversation. But I think I remember Fruits Basket. There's a scene that really meant a lot to me because it put into words, again, so many scenes in Fruits Basket align with like things that I believe deeply emotionally, things that is like, yeah, I really feel that way, or that really puts into words how I feel about an emotional thing. And the scene where Kisa, who we were talking about, gets bullied, and unlike the older Soma boys who also went through bullying, is just really hurt by it and really really recedes into herself and shuts down. And so she stops coming to school, and she just stays with Tohru for a while, because also she can't stay with her mother because her mother is reaching the breaking point as a Soma mom, and with Kisa. And so she's, her mother can't comfort her. She's got to stay with Tohru and the family. And then her teacher sends her a note home to, I guess, try and fix the problem. And the teacher's note is quite terrible. The teacher's note is like, well, we all hope that you're coming back, and I will be here to support you. But, it's really up to you to make a better impression with the rest of the class. And I think that you're getting picked on because the other students can sense that you don't like yourself. And so I would encourage you to think about your positive qualities and to embrace who you are as a person, because there's no way that somebody, and the letter ends with, as if it's a fact, and it's really cruel and upsetting to read, but it's something you could totally imagine someone writing. Like, there's no way for somebody who doesn't like themselves to be liked by others, right? You have to like yourself first. Yeah. And Evangelion isn't saying the exact same thing, but that is the gist of Shinji's roller coaster therapy session, is that I think it's easy to misinterpret or easy to boil down to, and I think this was a problem with the execution, not a misinterpretation, that Shinji just needs to like himself and then he can move forward. That he just has to accept that, like, my life is worth living, and even though I'm depressed and maybe nobody likes me, like, really, I just have to, nobody else will understand you, so you just have to accept yourself. I think that is a line in the Evangelion ending where it's nobody else will ever understand you, so you have to be the one to stick up for yourself and say, I understand myself and I love myself, and you have to make that choice. And I understand what it's saying in a positive way, but it always really bugged me, and I really didn't like it. And so and seeing it in Fruits Basket, seeing that letter, it reminded me of why. And Yuki's retort to this, he's like, what is this supposed to mean? He gets angry, which we don't see Yuki angry very often at all. He says, what do they think you're supposed to do? Just like find your positive qualities. He says, I can do that, but it's an empty exercise. Just saying like, oh, I'm good at, and Yuki's good at a lot of stuff. He has many positive qualities. You know, he's really handsome and beautiful, and people love him, and he's perfect in academics and sports and all that stuff. Like, but he's like, I can't just count up the things that are good about me, because it's a hollow exercise, because at the end of the day, I still hate myself. And if you hate yourself, then it doesn't matter how many positive qualities you point out or how much you go like, I have to love myself. You can't do it. And he says, what you need, what everyone needs, and this is an onus on the rest of the people, it's not on you, is that you need somebody who says, I like you just the way you are. You need somebody to say that to you first. And he said, and then it's a process. After that, you can start to accept that, you know, there are things about you that are lovable, and that you have the right to live as a person because someone cares about you. And that was like, oh, that's the truth to me. That's what I find meaningful and helpful. And I think it's difficult, because that can also be misinterpreted as like, oh, well, if nobody likes you in your life, then that's your problem. Like, you know, that you can't move on unless someone says, I like you and accept you first, which is difficult, because you can't tell somebody that either. You can't be like, oh, well, somebody will, you know, it's nobody else's job to save you. And I definitely don't think that's what Fruits Basket is saying. It's not that somebody else has to come in and save you. It's that there is somebody. And I think this is true for, you know, just about everybody in the world. There is somebody, even if you don't get along, or even if, you know, your relationship with this person isn't perfect, there is somebody who loves you just the way you are. And you have to see yourself through that person's eyes, and you have to, so rather than saying no one else will understand you, you're the only person who can understand yourself. It's like you, in the process of coming to understand this person who says they love you, you're trying to understand them because they say they love you. And it helps you to understand yourself, because you are thinking outside your own mind, which is all, you know, busted and twisted and confused and hurting. And so I really preferred Fruits Basket's message of looking outside yourself to Evangelion's, I think, not fully intentionally, but maybe accidental framing of, oh, well, look within yourself and you'll find that, you know, since no one else will understand you, you have to love yourself. I just don't think that's helpful. And I think it has helped a lot of people break out of depression. And so obviously it means a lot. And so I don't want to diminish Evangelion or say that it's not helpful, but Fruits Basket was the thing that broke me out of many, many troubles that I've had throughout life. And I've come back to it. And I think it's because of that message of like, look, reach out to other people, you know, because we all need to support one another, you know, and you can love yourself when other people love you, and people do love you. And that's, you know, so I thought that was the message that I wanted. And, you know, screw that teacher who wrote that letter that says, well, you should just love yourself and then everybody else will be drawn to you. And he's like, that's not the answer. It's not the answer.
I mean, that's just such a stereotypical, like, self-help thing, too, regardless of Evangelion. Yeah. I'm just like, no, that's not how anything works. And I agree. I really loved Yuki's, like, surprise anger and his eloquence about, you know, it's not even having somebody else love you. It's, like, seeing yourself through other people's eyes and understanding them and being like, okay, I can understand how the world sees me, which can help me interact with the world then in a way that is more
like, this person loves me, why? And, you know, in answering that question, you know, you feel more, you know, sane and real and like a real person because other people are loving you or reaching out to you, you know. And so, but I understand that's going to be very contentious because, you know, you can't live your life relying on other people. I don't know. And also that's a very big cultural thing. It's like in Japan, there is more of a pressure on you live your life to make other people comfortable. And Fruits Basket, on the one hand, is saying that that's good because it's saying we all need each other and we should be empathetic and trust one another. But it's also saying that's bad because it's like, because living your life to please other people is part of the Soma curse, right? So, you know, it's a tightrope. And I don't know. I like that the manga is so thoughtful about all these feelings. So, yeah, I guess that's my biggest takeaway is I really like that scene with Yuki.
It's a good scene. And yeah, it's like Fruits Basket is not, I mean, it's so hard because in Japan, it's in contrast to America, where we're so like individualistic and all these things. So
Yeah.
we're probably like, no, the thing where you have to love yourself first is better and all these things. I'm like, no, okay. But I think Fruits Basket overall is very good with the nuance of all its arguments, and they can be misinterpreted, sure, but like you're just not trying hard enough if you think.
I mean, there's 23 books, and it's 23 books of like fleshing out its emotional arguments. So there's like, it's very hard to take away a black and white anything. Ironically, a black and white anything from Fruits Basket. It's just,
except Tohru.
It's just,
you can take that away.
He's black and white. But it's it's just buckets of nuance, and you just get to kind of peel through the nuance and say what you agree with and what you disagree with. And yeah, there's things I disagree with in Fruits Basket. I can't think offhand because it means so much to me. But like, that's the fun thing, is finding little things that like exploring your reaction to a piece of art and thinking about why you think a certain way. So yeah,
I think what struck me about that scene too is the like believability of how crappy that teacher's letter is too. Because I don't know, for me, one thing that really stood out to me in high school was I had like a suicidal friend, and I kept trying to like help her, and I tried to get the adults to help her. And one of my teachers, we had a mutual teacher, and this teacher was just like, you can't save somebody who like doesn't want to be saved. And I was just like, you just said that to a 15-year-old. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm so upset by this. Like, this is a terrible thing. So I like believe that teachers, like that teacher has her heart in the right place, or their heart in the right place. But like, that's a bad letter,
Yeah, I think she's just ignorant, and I think that's why the Soma curse has lasted for centuries, is that it's hard to reach out, and it's hard to. The pressure is there to be like, well, you're making everybody else is fine because you're keeping your problems to yourself. So you should just continue doing that. And it's not helpful. It's not healthy. But yeah, like Fruits Basket, it's real good.
It's so good.
It makes me feel feelings.
Yeah. You will feel all the feelings. You will laugh. You will cry. You'll do both at the same time. And reread it because you're like, oh my God, it's so good.
Definitely. It means a lot to me. I think it is a formative piece of media for me, and definitely always going to come back to it. So yeah, and we have even more to discuss in the future. That's only the first 8 volumes.
Oh, we've only scratched the surface. I mean, Kiyos' true form is just the beginning, right? Like, come on.
It's the end of Act 1. The curtain is down. Tohru knows that there's something sinister about the Soma family, and it's not just Akito and his bangs. His evil bangs. I
did love when Tohru shoved Akito. I was like, that is
so good.
That's some powerful stuff right there, Tohru. Like, oh.
Yeah, and she says, and that's the thing, like, Tohru is astute. Like, it's she says, like, his words are gentle. There's nothing violent about his bearing. There's nothing, like, it's nothing where she feels like she has to, and she's seen violence. She's seen Kyo yell, "I hate you and I'm going to kill you" at Yuki over and over and over, and not broken it up because she's like, you guys. But all she sees Akito doing is just like gently talking to Yuki about how he should come back home so he can be re-educated, and in very nice, friendly terms. And she says, nope, not doing that, and she just shoves him. And it's like, it's like she cuts through the crap. And she's like, I realized for the first time, she said, I'd never before met somebody where I understood like real animosity, like real, there's a different translation. I think animosity is the word that Tokyopop's version uses, but like malice, she's like, I never seen like where like everything about their bearing is like kind and nice and normal, but like it's evil under there. And before you write Akito off as just the evil thing that needs to be defeated, oh boy, are we gonna explore some layers of that? Like, Akito is not the final boss,
Oh, we'll get to Akito. That's what I'm gonna promise you as I read this outro. All right, everybody, thanks for listening to Shojo and Tell. Comments, questions, constructive criticism, concerns. Need to tell us who your favorite Soma is, some favorite scenes. There's so much you can write. Just write an essay to us. That's fine.
Yeah.
Email shoujoandtell@gmail.com or leave a comment on shoujoandtell.com/fruitsbasket1. There's going to be at least 3 Fruits Baskets, so hold on to your hats there.
Yes.
We're at Shojo and Tell on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram. Jacob, where can people find you and your work on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at It's Bone Daddy. That is ITSBONEDADDY. It's Bone Daddy. And you can see all the stuff, anything that is an editorial on anything that's like a review or an interview and an editorial on animenewsnetwork.com. I helped produce that, put it together, all that stuff. And Fruits Basket wise, I will, if that's cool. I don't know if there's links in the description of this, but I will link to that radio drama that I made. Keep in mind, I made it 8 years ago now. Oh my God, I'm so old. I made it 8 years ago, and that it's a little rusty, but I worked really hard on it, and I'm still happy with it. If anybody anytime anyone tells me that meant anything to them, it really, really touches my heart, because it was a labor of love, and for very little response, and it means a lot to me. So and I'm looking forward to talking about the next 2/3 of this long manga with
long
with you,
manga.
Ashley.
Yeah. If you could leave a rating in iTunes or Stitcher, that'd be great. Otherwise, we'll be back next time to discuss volumes 9 to 16 of Fruits Basket. Mm-hmm. So the middle third-ish. Yes. It's an odd number of volumes. It's weird. But we will be sure to count how many times we cry and then tell you about them.
Yeah, I'll keep a tally. I'll be like, and I've got one of those crowd clickers that they tally how many people. And I'm just
you have to count the number of tears for each one too.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so if you want to hear about that will happen 2 weeks after this one. Until then, bye everybody.
Bye.